Coming up on Cronkite News, Governor Doug Ducey just signed a bill into law that requires proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote. We'll explain why some groups have already filed a lawsuit against this regulation.
Plus, many businesses struggle to stay afloat during the pandemic. We hear from one local restaurant that was able to stay open thanks to federal help.
And later on Break It Down, why suicides are on the rise in people of color, particularly among youth.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Anna Campbell.
And I'm Kelly Donahue. Thank you for joining us.
Here in Arizona, more than 24 election laws are still making their way through the legislature. But one made it through and was signed this week by Governor Ducey. And the sponsor of the new law that will require Arizonans to provide proof of citizenship before they can vote insists that the measure is, quote, on sound legal footing. Well, we're about to find out as Alexia Stanbridge reports from our Washington bureau.
Less than a day after Governor Doug Ducey signed House Bill 2492 into law Wednesday, opponents had already filed suit in federal court to block the law. That did not come as a surprise to Will Wilder of the Brennan Center for Justice.
Arizona has tried to impose proof of citizenship requirements like this on voters in the past. In federal elections, the Supreme Court very clearly told them 9 years ago that that was not okay.
What the court said in 2013 was that Arizona had to accept voters who registered using a federal form that does not require proof of citizenship, at least for voting in federal elections. But the new law would require documentary proof of citizenship to vote in any election in the state. Wilder thinks it's almost certain to fail in court.
There's, no reason to think that the Supreme Court would suddenly change its mind at this point.
But E.J. Dion of the Brookings Institution thinks that getting back to the high court might be the point.
Now, I suppose its sponsors look at a more conservative Supreme Court and hope that a more conservative Supreme Court might side with them and overturn or alter the earlier precedent.
The law's sponsor all but dared Democrats to sue. In a statement this week, State Representative Jake Hoffman said any court challenges to the law will, quote, only serve to further reinforce its clear constitutionality. Hoffman insists the law is aimed at protecting election security. But critics like Dion disagree, saying laws like Arizona's target minority voters with, quote, surgical precision.
In some states, Latino voters have obviously been the target of this. Black voters have been the target of this, but it's often kind of indirect.
HB 2492 was one of almost 150 election-related bills introduced in Arizona this year, more than 8% of the election bills introduced across the U.S.
I think Arizona certainly stands out as one of the most aggressive in trying to pass new laws curbing access compared to 2020, but it is clearly not alone.
And Wilder thinks the new law will do more harm than good.
I think this law it's unnecessary. It's going to harm Arizona voters, and it's something that the Supreme Court has already very clearly told Arizona they're not allowed to do.
In Washington, Alexia Stanbridge, Cronkite News.
At least 2 lawsuits challenging the law have been filed so far in federal district court here in Arizona. The plaintiffs include 5 groups, including advocates for Latinos, students, and voting rights.
The Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs is sending 9,000 pounds of supplies and equipment to aid Ukraine. Governor Doug Ducey tweeted his support of the donation from 11 county, state, and tribal law enforcement agencies. Donations came from the Arizona Department of Public Safety, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, and Phoenix PD. The supplies include 874 bulletproof vests, 77 helmets, tactical clothing, footwear pads, and shields. Ukrainian Relief Group will transport the equipment, and it's expected to arrive in the next 2 weeks. The Biden administration is ending the Trump-era Remain in Mexico immigration policy. The restrictions blocking migrants from entering the U.S. will end on May 23rd. Title 42 was created during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Homeland Security is preparing for a worst-case scenario of up to 18,000 people trying to cross the border daily. Democratic Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly put out a joint statement saying the administration should have a plan to handle the influx of migrants before ending Title 42.
Another possible sign of economic recovery. Employers across America added 431,000 jobs this last month. This isn't out of the ordinary either. In fact, we have now seen numbers above 400,000 for 11 months in a row. All of this happening despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the ongoing war in Ukraine, supply chain issues, and high inflation. According to a government report, this growth also brought the unemployment rate down to 3.6%. We haven't seen that number since about 2 years ago.
And some workers are seeing bigger paychecks. Small businesses in Phoenix have experienced a rise in wages and the job index over the past year. According to the Paycheck Small Business Employment Watch, Phoenix ranked 7th among U.S. metro areas in hourly earnings growth from March 2021 to March 2022. The report found that Phoenix wages increased by over 5% to $29.70. The Valley also sits 4th among metro areas in job hiring pace at just under 7%.
Many businesses in Arizona were hit hard during the COVID-19 pandemic. One Phoenix council member's team is working to make government more accessible to small business owners.
Due to food shortages and its hands-on nature, restaurants were among the businesses affected the most by the pandemic. These negative effects can be seen here in Arizona. All week, fresh tortillas are handmade, just like this, at Taste of Honduras. The restaurant has been family-owned and operated since 2018, but when COVID hit, they fell into hard times.
Al principio fue difícil porque tuvimos que cerrar la puerta.
At first, it was difficult because we had to close following the state's protocol. We only had takeaway. Sales went down. We were afraid of what would happen next.
59% of Hispanic households in Arizona reported job disruptions in the first 4 months of the pandemic. In response, Phoenix granted funds from the American Rescue Plan to help small businesses in the Valley.
We want to be accessible, and that's a lot of the work I do, is make government accessible to your average person.
Emmanuel Gallardo Sanidad is the constituent and community organizer for Councilwoman Betty Guardado. He says no matter how available the grants are, many small business owners are skeptical about where the money is coming from.
Awareness, trust, familiarity with the government. I mean, it's a huge barrier that we see in the district, all over the city. One thing I encountered a lot in talking to small business owners is they're like, what's the catch? Or is it a loan? I'm like, no, these are grants. This is from the federal government.
Thanks to Gallardo Sanidad's dedication, Taste of Honduras was awarded the grant money and was even able to expand their restaurant.
The money helped us pay the bills, the rent, the employees, and make the space a little bigger. And everything, he helped us. I am pleased because they were able to help us.
The last day for small businesses to apply for these grants is April 15th. To apply, visit the City of Phoenix website. In the newsroom, Molly McBride, Cronkite News.
If you plan on being in the market for a car that runs on gas, we have some good news for you because of some new regulations set by the U.S. government. These new rules state that new vehicles sold in the country will have to get an average of 40 miles per gallon of gas. That's by the year 2026. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said these new regulations actually undo some standards put in place by the Trump administration. Those standards required new vehicles to get around 28 miles per gallon. Despite the new regulations, some environmental activists say this still isn't enough.
Denied endangered species status for a second time, environmental activists are still pushing for the Sonoran desert tortoise to be protected in the Southwest. The Sonoran desert tortoise is native to Arizona and Sonora, Mexico. In February, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service determined that the tortoises did not warrant endangered species protection. They noted the tortoise population is mass and stable, but environmental activists questioned the department's decision. The Western Watershed Project in Arizona and New Mexico worries that certain livestock pose threats to their existence. Environmental agencies are continuing to monitor the desert reptile.
It will be a great weekend to get outside and enjoy the warm temperatures. Luke Vickery joins us from the Cronkite News Weather Center to tell us when we can expect to see those 90s.
Good afternoon, Arizona. Looking at our current conditions right now, you can see mildly breezy conditions with wind coming out of the east at about 6 miles per hour, and also pretty dry conditions right now with 14% humidity, and our temperatures are sitting in the mid-80s. Now, as we move on to the remainder of our evening, you can see 84 degrees around 6 p.m. And as we move to the later parts of our evening, our temperatures will drop by about 10 degrees, and then even more from there on. Now, as we look at our high temperatures, our low temperatures for overnight, 62 degrees is what we are going to expect in Phoenix, and that's about a little bit warmer than the surrounding cities around us, and that is because of the urban heat island effect that you hear a lot of around here. Now, 32 degrees is what you'll expect up towards the higher terrain areas. And if you move south towards Tucson, the mid-50s is what you can expect down there. And as we look at the high temperatures for tomorrow, 88 degrees in Phoenix and Tucson. And if you move north towards the higher terrain areas, you can expect temperatures in the low 60s. Now, as we look at the slow progression we're going to see with tomorrow's temperatures, during the AM hours, temperatures will be a little bit lower, 66 degrees during sunrise. And as we move on to the later parts of the day, 86 degrees is where we will top out at. And now, when we look at our 8-day forecast, you will see temperatures are going to slowly progress throughout the week. We're going to have our last day below a high of 90 degrees on Monday. And for the remainder of the week, we really won't look back. And we will peak on Friday with 96 degrees. And we even have a 20% chance of hitting triple digits that day. In the Cronkite News Weather Center, I'm Luke Vickery.
I'm Hayden Weber. Coming up after the break, I'll have your Cronkite Sports Report. We'll have the story of a local high school wide receiver who stayed home to play for his dream college next.
Washington Week that you will not get anywhere else are the best and the brightest reporters from different media companies, and they're able to have a real conversation about things that are happening in Washington and around the country. But it's also a show about issues that are relevant to different communities. How do you think that, as the moderator, I feel this deep responsibility to bring in those other perspectives so that people understand how power and politics impact their daily lives?
Friday nights at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Welcome back to Cronkite News. I'm Hayden Weber with your Friday Sports Report. The Phoenix Suns have won 9 straight games and are going for their franchise record 63rd win this season tonight against the second best in the West, Memphis Grizzlies. The Suns have reached 62 wins twice in the past, most recently in 2005. But it took those Suns 81 games to reach 62. It took this year's team only 76 games to hit the mark. The Suns have the 9th easiest remaining strength of schedule, giving them the perfect opportunity to break the record and re-break it over and over again. The 2022 Men's World Cup is set to take place this November in Qatar. And today, teams were drawn into 8 groups of 4 to determine the group stage matchups. Let's check out who the United States will face come November. After missing out on the 2018 World Cup entirely, the U.S. is back. They were drawn into Group B and will play England, Iran, and the winner of the European playoff, who will be Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. The 15th ranked U.S. is the second highest ranked team among the Group B countries, with the highest being England at 5th in the world. After a busy offseason, the Sun Devils welcomed a large number of new players to camp. One of the new faces is a former Saguaro wide receiver. I had a chance to talk to the sought-after recruit, find out what led him to stay home. Fresh off a state championship at Saguaro, Javen Jacobs enters the fold at ASU spring practice as an early enrollee. Jacobs rocks the same number 8 in camp that he wore in high school, and the same number 8 fellow Saguaro and Sun Devil alum DJ Foster wore. The wide receiver feels like he's in the mix to make an impact next season.
I just want to make the most of all my opportunities. You know, whether it's on special teams or on the field, I want to play, you know, I want to be in the mix.
ASU was Javen's first offer, which meant a lot for the hometown kid who grew up going to games at Sun Devil Stadium.
You know, staying home, I felt was always an option for me since they were my first offer. And, you know, ASU they kind of just, you know, recruited me pretty quick.
Javen's dad, Ja'Cory, exposed him to ASU football at a young age and isn't sure what emotions will hit him when his son takes the field for the first time.
You know, to be honest, it's going to be surreal, man, to actually see him run out of that tunnel.
Ja'Cory is one of the many mentors Javen had throughout his life. Another one is his high school receivers coach, Rudy Burgess, who played under the lights right here at Sun Devil Stadium back in the early 2000s. The two share a bond over their similar play styles and over a pair of gloves.
Me and him have a lot of similarities in our gameplay and the way that coaches use us, you know, and our versatility to help the team. And, you know, it's pretty funny story also is that he credits a lot of his success to these gloves that I gave him.
After earning those game-worn gloves, Javen went on to throw for a touchdown pass in a game, just like his coach did at ASU. ASU has one more week of practices before the spring game on April 9th. That's all for today's Cronkite Sports Report. Back to you, Anna and Kelly.
Mesa's Troy Kotzer, who won an Oscar last Sunday for Best Supporting Actor, was honored this morning in downtown Mesa. His award-winning performance was in the film Coda, and he is the second deaf actor to win an Oscar. The city of Mesa installed 4 banners in 2 locations to honor his achievement. Banners were installed at Main Street and Center Street, and at Main Street and McDonald Street. The 53-year-old who resides in Mesa played Frank Rossi, a father in a deaf family with a hearing daughter who dreams of becoming a singer. Kotzer says he hopes his success with Coda can inspire the deaf community to reach new goals and be unlimited.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.